Where is the justice for Brian? When does he get a fair trial? Is he going to end up just like this other guy, 35 years on death row? When does Brian get a fair trial? Good morning, everyone. I am going through my photo albums and I'm just picking out some stuff, just pieces of information that I've saved, and I'm just going to just look into it and do a video on it. Maybe not very quick, hopefully, you know, not too lengthy, because I have so much. And so I was also going to ask you guys, what would you like to have me look into? Like, I could look into Saeed, which I've got lots of stuff on, and photos, all that kind of stuff that's not there anymore. And let's see, Lake Campbell, he's another one I've got a lot of stuff on. I have stuff, or Molly, I can do Molly. I said I was going to continue to do her, and then I kind of got led astray there because I was kind of trying to see how things were going to go with the whole dad thing. I wanted to make sure everything was on the down low. And let's see. I mean, there's just let me know. Let me know what you want me to do. And I'll see if I've got that information. I'm sure I do. I'm fine. I have more information than I thought I did. I know I had a lot, right? But I just was digging into it last night and going through stuff and like trying to organize it, but it's so hard to organize it on a phone because, like I said, when you try to put it in an album, it just throws it in there. So the way I've got things down, I screenshot them in sequence, so I don't want that to get messed up. So trying to go and find them again, like I have to scroll all the way. I mean, there's like 24,000 photos or screenshots or more. There might even be more than that. I know that much, at least there are. So anyway, I'm going to read this one. This one made me feel horrible because thinking of BK, if this is what they're going to condemn him to, this guy, he was ordered the death sentence more than 30 years ago to be carried out next month for convicted murderer Gerald R. Pizzito. And this was on November 23rd of 2022. So I just put his name in Google, and I'm going to go there, and this is what pops up. Lots of stuff. So the warrant schedules Mr. Pizzito's execution for March 23rd, 2023, which already would have been done and over with. So I don't know. I don't even know if he's been executed or not. Or yeah. So I'll just, let me see, what date is this one? 2023. Let's go here. Oh, Idaho Public Television. Oh my God. I hope they don't show it. November 16th, you guys, 2022. Yeah, it served the warrant. God, 30 years later, you guys. The Idaho Department of Correction announced that it served Gerald Pizzito Jr. with a death warrant Wednesday at 1:05 p.m. Pizzito has been on Idaho's death row for over 35 years for 2 murders in Idaho County. His execution is scheduled December 15th, 2022. The Idaho Department of Corrections press release says Director Josh Tewalt has informed state officials that the department is working to lawfully source chemicals needed to carry out lethal injection, but does not possess them currently. See, that's the issue with this, you guys, is that's the issue they've been having, is these particular chemicals. And I've been doing some like reading up on that, and it's like, whew. I mean, I know these guys did bad stuff. I get it. I totally get it. And in my opinion, I mean, if someone's done something like that, and without a shadow of a doubt, like literally they have to be caught, like Dahmer, like stuff in his freezer, you know, like that kind of stuff, then I almost, and I can't say it totally, but I really do sometimes feel, depending on the case, right, that we're just paying, I mean, ungodly amounts of money it costs to put for one person to be in the system. I mean, I don't make that much money, what it costs for them, each person in there, right? And so, but then there's the other side of it. Well, where's, you know, God only knows where that money's going to go if it's not going there. I mean, who knows where that money's going to go? I don't think they're ever going to do anything good with this, with the funds that they've got. I mean, they're so frivolous with everything, it seems to me. I mean, they could be doing such good stuff, and it doesn't seem like it even goes in that direction ever. I mean, there's some, yes. I mean, thank God for the people that do that. But I'm talking like government, things like that. So, but that's been a huge issue, is the actual chemicals to do this. It's like 3 different things they have to do. And they're all different injections, I believe, too, from what I remember. So he has also suspended the department's execution procedures, except for those portions that ensure Mr. Pizzito's due process rights are protected until such time as he anticipates a change in the material ability to carry out an execution. And I'm wondering if that's why they brought back the firing squad, because of the chemicals, and not only just them not being available, but also for someone trained to administer them. That's the biggest part right there, I think. Well, I mean, it's all big, right? It's all comes into play, right? But for a person to go, oh, geez, I just got chills up all of my arms, geez Louise. That for someone to have, I just can't, can you imagine that job? No. What, that's got to be the suckiest job. One of the suckiest jobs, I'm telling you. But, yeah, think about that one. I mean, for someone to go in there, like I've read some things, I can't remember who it was, but there's been a couple different times where, like it took, I mean, like they even pulled the curtain so that people weren't watching, which I can't imagine I would never be able to watch something like that ever, or would I ever want to. But they had to pull the curtain because it was just getting very messy, and they weren't going to sleep, but they weren't leaving this planet. And ugly things happen to things like that. I mean, it's like, you know, I'm not going to go into it, but I had a pet one time that I had to put, but she had to go, she had cancer really bad. And anyway, it was just awful. And I just can't even imagine. I mean, I cried. What was it called that I got? I got, pleurisy. I got pleurisy when that happened, because I cried so hard, and I was laying like kind of across the table holding on to her, on the metal table, and just because I just cried, and I ended up getting pleurisy from that. I don't know if you guys have ever had pleurisy. I've only had it once in my life, thank God, knock on wood. Definitely. My cat's gonna jump up. She thinks someone's here now. She always jumps up when I knock on wood. But that stuff is painful, man. Oof. But thank goodness the doctor, I went to a walk-in clinic and was telling him what the deal was. And he's like, oh, you got pleurisy. And he gave me, told me what to do. And geez, it was gone. I lucked out. Like I really lucked out. But yeah, so it is not anything anybody, it's ugly. It's awful. Put it that way. And so think about that with a larger individual. And I don't know. I don't want to think about it. I'm sure you guys don't want to either. So anyway, Idaho passed a law in 2022 granting anonymity to any manufacturer or supplier that supplied such chemicals to the state. So does that mean that they don't want them to know? Is that what that means? Like they passed a law granting them like secret, like no one would know it was them that was giving the chemicals? Is that what they're saying? Is that so? Are they saying here that the reason they can't get the chemicals is because people don't want to give the chemicals because they don't agree with it, or because they don't want to be named as in being the ones that supplied the chemicals? That's interesting. The Department of Corrections previously said it has been unable to obtain lethal injection chemicals due to publicity concerns from suppliers. Yeah, wow. Yeah, okay, so I'm reading this along with you guys. I don't... That's typically what I do. Every once in a while, like, if I just get into an article, if I click on it and I start reading it or whatever, and I get into it, then I'll let you know. But typically, I'm reading this right. I mean, I'm just as surprised as you are, whatever's going to come next. So the warrant was filed in Idaho County District Court at 10:18 a.m. and issued by Judge J. Gaskell. Pizzito's defense, the Capital Habeas Unit of the Federal Defender Services of Idaho, criticized the state in a Wednesday press release for scheduling the execution between the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. Aren't they just known for that? Or whatever. Isn't that when everything seems to happen? That's bizarre, you guys. What the heck? The release also said his attorneys plan to seek a stay of execution due to pending federal court challenges. Why would it? I don't know. The state is trying to execute Mr. Pizzito as quickly as possible. 35 years is as quickly as possible? Lordy. Supervising attorney Deborah Kzuba said the governor can still accept the recommendation of his commission and spare Mr. Pizzito, the public, and especially the prison staff a needless execution. See the death warrant and full press release below. Let me see. Let me see. Let me go to another one. I don't know if, we'll see if it's, I don't know if he's gone or not. I don't know. So that was 2020, which just, let me see this right here. A lot of times these guys, they don't ever do it. Like they just, so let me read this first. Let me get into this for a minute. I gotta change the laundry from the washer to the dryer real quick. Be right back. Didn't I just read something about this, what's his name? Raul Labrador? Because it made me laugh. Because of Cheech and Chong. So this was Idaho Statesman. This was Idaho seeks to execute longtime death row inmate Gerald again. What we know. And this was February 24th of 2023. He's in the center here. We'll have to look up the case and see. For the third time in 2 years, Idaho has issued a death warrant for inmate Gerald Pizzito, seeking to execute him next month. Attorney General Raul Labrador announced Friday morning the latest effort to fulfill the death sentence of Pizzito, a convicted murderer seeking a conclusion to his decades-old conviction. His execution, now the state's fifth attempt to do so, is scheduled for March 23rd, which it didn't happen. Labrador, a former Idaho Republican congressman, has been in the new role just 8 weeks. Idaho law is clear. Those who commit the most egregious, I don't know why these words get me every time, you guys. And it's like I was a spelling bee champ in my school. Gregarious crimes. But I don't know. Maybe it's just that age thing. Deserve the ultimate punishment, Labrador said in a statement. Pizzito was sentenced to death. We followed the law and obtained a new death warrant. Pizzito, 66, has remained on Idaho death row since 1986. Conviction for murder of 2 people at a cabin north of McCall. He is terminally ill with late-stage bladder cancer. Ooh. amongst a host of serious ailments, and been under hospice care for more than 3 years. Holy cow. Idaho can't, I'm not even going to go to that. I'm not going to go to that spot. I'm not going to do it. Idaho can't obtain lethal drugs. Idaho can't obtain lethal drugs. Idaho most recently pursued Pizzito's death by lethal injection in November, but the state prison system proved unable to obtain the execution drugs needed to fulfill his death sentence, indefinitely postponing his planned December 15th execution. So yeah, so he never, and he still isn't. So where does this leave Bryan? That's why they brought back the firing squad, because of this. That's crazy. Labrador said the Idaho Department of Correction, which is tasked with executing Pizzito, is now in the process of trying to find the lethal injection drugs it failed to obtain just 3 months ago. The state prison system does not currently possess the drugs necessary for the execution, the Department of Corrections confirmed. Efforts to lawfully source chemicals are ongoing. Idaho Department of Corrections noted that prison officials at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution outside Kuna, where Pizzito is housed, served him the death warrant just before noon on Friday, and his press release about obtaining a new death warrant was mailed. Oh my God. No freaking way, you guys. Look at the time on here. The death warrant for Pizzito was emailed to new outlets at 11:12 a.m. What is with them? It's just a tactic that they use. Do people there know that this is something? And like, if you hear this, beware. I mean, I don't know. It seems really weird. And here's the thing: if they're handing him the death warrant every time they do that, like he gets this, granted, he's done something bad. If he is indeed guilty, here's the thing. I mean, now that I'm thinking about, the things that they're doing now that we're seeing in real time, that, I mean, how many people are in jail over there that aren't guilty? I can't even go there, man. Oh, jeez. It is unclear what, if anything, has changed if that execution drug procurement process since the execution drug procurement process since the last time the state tried to execute him. State Prisons Director Josh Chawal told the agency's board in December that officials were unable to acquire the drug to execute an inmate. While our efforts to secure chemicals remain ongoing, I have no reason to believe our status will change prior to the scheduled execution. Wow. In my professional judgment, I believe it's in its best interest of justice to allow the death warrant to expire and stand down our execution preparation. Well, if they keep telling the guy, every time that they say this, you got to get him prepared and all this other stuff, and then it doesn't happen. I mean, you got to think about that's criminal in its own rights, I mean, yeah, he did something wrong if he did do that, what I'm saying. But I don't know. If I say it that way, then if I say that the death penalty for some, that are definitely guilty, like I said, in like Dahmer's case and things like that, then I'm also being, I'm not doing unto others that I want them to do unto me type thing, the golden rule type thing. I don't know. There's such a fine line, you guys. It's just, it's really tough. It really is. I mean, well, I'm glad I've never worked for a prison system, nothing like that, and I never will, thank goodness. I don't know, maybe I have in a previous life, I don't know, and steered away from it in this one. So, yeah, so that's about it. There we go. Okay, so Bill would, okay, let's go back here. With our efforts, in my professional judgment, allow the death warrant to expire and stand down our execution preparation. Bill would allow firing squad executions. There we go. State Rep Bruce Skog from Napa, a former Ada County deputy prosecutor, introduced on Wednesday a bill that would restore use of a firing squad as backup method of execution. The Attorney General's office helped author the bill, spokesperson Emily Kleinsworth told the Statesman on Thursday, and Labrador was personally involved, she said. On Friday, Labrador emphasized his hope that Idaho lawmakers would pass House Bill 186. The proposed legislation has yet to receive a hearing date in the House Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, which Skog chairs. If the firing squad bill advances with the majority from that 18-member committee, it would move on to the House floor for initial vote. You know, in my opinion, if I was in this position and I had to choose what it would be, I would pick the firing squad, hands down. I wouldn't even think twice about it. I mean, don't they have your head covered, like and then it's like you don't even, like, there's people standing there, you don't know which one shoots, but one of them, that's. Anyway, I don't know. That seems like it would be so much easier, and you don't have, the bullet's going to kill you, hopefully. I mean, in that situation, if you're in that situation, right? But I don't know. After seeing what my cat went through, I definitely would pick the gun. So we hope the legislature would also consider giving the state an alternative method of execution. Governor Brad Little would entertain singing. Oh, God. Yeah. You know what? They probably do sing it. Yeah. Bill out there singing with his hand on his chest. Baritone. Blah, 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 blah. You should have seen me when I just did that. It was ugly. I put my head all back and my chin's all down on my chest. I'm like, my lower lip's all stretched out. Like I have one of those tribes where they put that big old thing in the bottom of their lip and stretch it out. Whew, that did not look good, and I wasn't even looking in the mirror, and I knew it didn't look good. So, if they pass the legislature, a spokesperson for the Republican governor told the Statesman on Thursday, Governor Little supports capital punishment and will continue to support policies adopted by the legislature that enable the state of Idaho to successfully and constitutionally carry out death penalty. Madison Hardy, Little's spokesperson, said by email. The nonprofit Federal Defender Services of Idaho, which represents Pizzito, lambasted the latest attempt to execute its client and questioned the intent behind Labrador seeking Pizzito's death warrant. Yeah. We are devastated and horrified that the state would once again seek a death warrant for Mr. Pizzito without having any of the chemicals necessary to carry out his execution, Deborah Kazuba, supervising attorney of the nonprofit's unit that oversees death penalty cases, said in a statement. I agree. After the prior two execution warrants, it does not make sense. I agree. We find the timing of the warrant particularly curious, given that it was sought by Attorney General Labrador while he advocates for a new law that would bring back the firing squad as a method of execution in Idaho. Yeah, so that's interesting because, everybody, well, I know that everybody that I, encountered was thinking that they did this especially, just for Brian, just in his case, but maybe it's more to it, but I don't know. I kind of highly doubt it. They're out for blood on that one. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm peeling an orange. Oh, and my alarm goes off. Everything all at once. Peeling a little cutie orange. Oh, it's just so good. Yep, I could just eat a whole bag of these, but I don't. But I could. If I didn't get full too fast. I'm such a dork. Okay, so. Oh, I just had to have a bite, you guys, sorry. So let me look and see if he's still around. I'll be right back. Well, it looks like they have granted a stay. So judge orders hearing for Idaho prisoner who faced 5 execution dates, claims of repeated psychological torture. So Idaho U.S. District Judge B. Lynn Windmill has ruled in favor of death row prisoner Gerald, indefinitely pausing his March 23rd execution date and granting him a hearing in his claim that the state of Idaho violates the constitutional right against cruel and unusual punishment by repeatedly scheduling execution dates while knowing the state does not have the means to carry it out. Boy, they do like to torture people, it does seem, doesn't it? Like it's like just their way. Oh man, that's scary. So, as Pizzito describes it, Judge Windmill wrote, defendant's repeated rescheduling of his execution is like dry firing in a mock execution or a game of Russian roulette. With each new death warrant comes another spin of the revolver's cylinder, restarting the 30-day countdown until the trigger pulls, not knowing whether a round is chambered. Pizzito must relive his last days in a delirium of uncertainty until the click sounds and the cylinder spins again. Well, that's definitely a good way of putting it. Mr. Pizzito has been on death row since 1986, has faced 5 execution dates during his 37 years behind bars, 3 of which have been set during the past 2 years. Despite being under hospice care for the last 3 years with terminal bladder cancer, the state says it intends to execute Mr. Pizzito according to Attorney General Raul Labrador. Idaho law is clear. Those who commit the most egregious crimes deserve the ultimate punishment. Pizzito was sentenced to death. We followed the law and obtained a new death warrant. AG Attorney General's Labrador's most recent effort to execute Mr. Pizzito came February 2023 when he secured a death warrant for the following month. That same day that AG Labrador announced his intention to obtain a death warrant for Mr. Pizzito's attorneys filed a lawsuit claiming that the state had operated in bad faith by obtaining death warrants while knowing it lacked the lethal injection drugs required under Idaho law to execute their client. Labrador requested that the court dismiss Mr. Pizzito's claim that the repeated rescheduling of his execution violated his 8th Amendment rights, but Judge Windmill dismissed the AG's motion. Judge Windmill also rejected Mr. Pizzito's claim that his due process rights were violated under the 14th Amendment, but found Mr. Pizzito's claims of mental anguish and psychological torture were plausible, which is the legal threshold required for a hearing. Having spent nearly 4 decades on death row, and isn't it death row? Aren't you like on total lockdown on death row? Like literally you go nowhere, like you stay in a cell like, what was it, 23 hours of 24 a day? I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, wow. Nearly 4 decades on death row. Mr. Pizzito's attorneys argue that Idaho's repeated scheduling of executions does not fall within U.S. society standards for a constitutional execution. That setting of multiple execution dates has been psychologically traumatizing to him. Many experts in the capital punishment sphere believe the long periods of isolation during time spent on death row can lead to suicidality. I've never even heard of that word put it like that before. Suicidality. Interesting. I've never heard that before. Delusion and insanity. This concept, death row phenomenon, occurs when long-term isolation and uncertain outcomes begin to have psychological implications. For those living on death row, there is a dichotomy. Dichotomy? How do I pronounce that? I want to know what that word means. Hold on. Okay, dichotomy. A division or contrast between two things that are represented as being opposed or entirely different. A rigid dichotomy between science and mysticism. Yes, okay. All right, we got that. Good. Thank you very much. So, for those living on death row, there is a dichotomy to their daily life. Certainty and uncertainty. As Reprieve describes, there is the certainty and mounting tensions that execution is inevitably, that looms ever closer, but uncertainty about exactly when it will happen and how long, lengthily. That's another word. That's so weird. Why do they put all these ILYs on the end of these things? And how long. Idaho makes up their own vocabulary too, apparently. I've never heard it put like that. The lengthily, I don't know. lengthy, maybe, but not lengthily. And how long the lengthily legal process, with its many delays and improbabilities, will leave the prisoner in this state. In a notable ruling from an Inter-American Commission on Human Rights issued in 2018, the commission determined that in a case of Russell Bucklew, a death sentence prisoner in Missouri, the United States had violated Bucklew's human rights granted by the American Declaration of Rights and Duties of Man by keeping him on death row for more than 20 years. And this guy's been on death row for 35. It is, in its decision, the commissioner wrote, Russell Bucklew has been deprived of his liberty on death row from 1997 to the date of the present report, for example, more than 20 years. The commission notes that the time spent by Russell on death row greatly exceeds the length of time that other international or domestic courts have characterized as cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. The very fact of spending 20 years on death row is by any account excessive and inhumane. Consequently, the United States is responsible for violating, to the detriment of Russell Bucklew, the right to humane treatment and not to receive cruel, infamous, or unusual punishment established by Article, whatever that number is, in the American Declaration. Wow. Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to read the rest of this. I'll leave the link in there, but so far, like, he's alive, and he's, it's been a stay. So, but yeah, this, it really is. I mean, can you imagine, you guys? I mean, 35. First of all, 35 years, and only 5 times there's been, death warrant issued. 2 times in, like the last couple years, right? So 35 years. So I wonder what the other ones were, because that is, I mean, they talk about this guy being here for 20 years. This guy's been here for 35. Jeez, that's crazy. Okay, there was one thing in here that showed a video, so let me see if I can find it.
Well, the death penalty is another divisive topic throughout our country. Some states have it, others don't. Idaho, though, it does. And the death penalty was officially established in Idaho in 1864. Right now, there are 8 people on Idaho's death row. But the last time someone was actually executed in Idaho was the year 2012. Gerald Pizzito is one of the 8, and he is the longest-serving death row inmate in Idaho. He's been on death row for 3 decades after being convicted of first-degree double murder. In December of last year, Pizzito was scheduled for execution by lethal injection, but it was called off because the Idaho Department of Correction couldn't get their hands on the necessary chemicals. But today, Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador set a new death warrant for Pizzito, saying, quote, the state will continue to attempt to obtain the necessary drugs for lethal injection. Pizzito's new execution date is now set for March 23rd, and this comes days after legislation was introduced in Idaho to reinstate the firing squad as a secondary method for the death penalty. Interesting timing, because even if the legislation does become law, it wouldn't be legal before Pizzito's death warrant expires. But the Attorney General can just ask for another one if they don't get the chemicals in time. Today, we heard from Governor Brad Little on this legislation and the death penalty.
I'm a proponent for capital punishment, but we need to do it in the most dignified and humane manner that creates the least amount of stress with my corrections team.
So the least amount of stress with his corrections team. That's interesting that he would put it that way when there's, laws for, not treating, the prisoners like that particular way. I mean, that's, yeah. So here's this